Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. This is my second video today. I'm trying whenever possible to make 2 videos each day when I have the time to do it. I'll upload one today and the other one tomorrow, and then by the day after that hopefully I'll have time to make a couple of more videos. If you're interested in seeing videos about vintage Japanese cameras, please subscribe, please come back. I plan to be doing videos on a great many new cameras. For those of you who are new to my channel, I sell vintage Japanese cameras at my online store, japanvintagecamera.com, as well as my Etsy store, which is also called Japan Vintage Camera, and I also have an eBay store. So if you're interested in buying this camera or another vintage Japanese camera, please visit my stores. I'll post links to my stores in the description below the video. The subject of today's video is a really odd and unusual camera, and quite an uncommon one. This one is the Petri Pro 7 camera, which I think was introduced in around 1963 or so. And this is quite an interesting camera because of its rather, I guess, unusual or bold, or whatever you want to call it, style. These interesting angles and lines and things like that. Petri produced a camera which was called just the Petri 7, and this is similar to that, but this one seems to be dressed up a little bit more to make it more, I guess, cosmetically attractive. Around the time this camera was made, there was kind of a big change in the design of all kinds of things around the world, at least the aesthetic designs. The soft curves and things like that, which were popular in the 1940s and 50s, were giving away to the sharp angles and edges, which you can see on this particular camera. And yeah, quite interesting. The reason that so few of these cameras exist today is not because they were produced in small numbers. They actually produced quite a few of these, but these are not especially well-made cameras. And if you were a kid, like back in the 60s or 70s, and you read comic books, often in these comic books you would see advertisements for toys and gimmicks and things like that, X-ray specs, joke gum and stuff like that, or Red Ryder BB guns, or even cameras. And this is the kind of camera I would expect that you would find, in a comic book that kids might be interested in. I don't think this was one of those cameras, but the overall design and the feel of it, it seems to be that kind of camera. Kind of something which is not expensively made, and kind of rather maybe some corners cut in the choice of the materials and things like that. Yeah, not an expensive camera, with one exception. This camera has an outstanding lens. The lens which comes in this camera, which is, I guess, what they call they've called Oricore or something like that in the Petri cameras. This is a 45mm f1.8 lens, and I've seen a lot of photos taken with these lenses, and I'm always amazed with the quality of the images they produce. A camera is quite a simple device. It's just a light box, and the film is pulled across the back, and there is a lens which projects the image onto the film, and there is a shutter and aperture system which regulates the time and the amount of light and such which hits the film. So a camera doesn't have to be extremely well made or extremely expensive to deliver a quality image, so long as it has a good lens and the shutter and aperture are accurate. And from what I've seen of the photographs taken with these cameras, I'm quite impressed with them. Would I want to own one and carry one? Why not? If it works, it's worth using. So let's go ahead and take a look at the features, controls, functions, and how to use the Petri Pro 7. Starting at the top here, we have the film rewind knob, which folds out. We have a shoe, not a hot shoe, just a regular flash shoe, and on the lens somewhere here, right here, is a socket which allows you to plug in a PC sync flash cord. Over here we have the light meter readout, and this particular camera has a coupled light meter, so as you turn these dials here, it changes the resistance between the light meter and the readout here, and gives you an eye. When you get the right settings, you should have this red needle here lined up right in the center. And if you want a little bit more exposure, you can turn it until it moves more toward the top, less exposure, go down toward the bottom. So yeah, pretty simple system and easy to use. This here on the top looks like a shutter button, but it's not. This is simply a place where you can plug in a cable release. And over here we have the film counter window. The shutter release button is actually this big white button here located on the front. On the back of the camera we have the viewfinder eyepiece or eye port. There's no plastic or anything around this one. It's kind of recessed a little bit to prevent you from accidentally rubbing the glass or whatever. And then the film winding and shutter charging lever is located here on the back. And for whatever reason this one is not working today, and it was working yesterday, so I don't expect awesome performance from an old Petri camera. On the top here we have the viewfinder assembly, and it has a pretty good rangefinder with projected frame lines, which was quite a luxury option among rangefinder cameras, and not something that I would expect very much from a Petri. And of course here we have the film tab, which is arranged in both meters and feet. And oddly here I don't see a depth of field scale, which is usually something I see on these cameras, but not on this particular one. In front of this we have the aperture ring with a range of f1.8, of course, up to f16. And here we have a switch from switching between the manual and flash modes. And here we have a shutter which is arranged from B to 1/500th of a second. And of course there is a film speed set adjustment here. There's a tab which you can turn here and use it to adjust the film speed in the camera. And of course on the front here we have the lens, and we have this Fresnel glass around it, and this is where the selenium light meter sits. As I said, the shutter button is located here on the front of the camera, and oh, there goes the self-timer. Maybe that was stuck or something on it. And this was kind of an idea which was designed to reduce camera shake. Sometimes you push down on the top of the button, the camera moves down when you push the button. And if you put it on the front, maybe it pushes back. This one is set kind of at a 45-degree angle, so maybe this reduces the vertical and horizontal motion by maybe half each way, and will probably give you, at least theoretically, less blur when you're taking a photograph with this camera. On the bottom here we have a standard 1/4-inch tripod socket, and we have a release button which you have to depress in order to rewind the film. The top of the meter here says Petri Camera Company, and it's anti-shock and waterproof. I seriously doubt this is a wet-proof. Excuse me. I doubt it's a waterproof camera, but I suppose wet-proof. I have no idea what wet-proof means. I suppose most cameras you could consider wet-proof, but I think this was specifically for the light meter and probably not for the rest of the camera. Loading the film is quite easy. You lift up on this tab here, and the film door pops up. This camera has kind of the feature where you can simply pull up on the rewind knob, and that allows you to put your film cartridge inside. Always push down on here, so when you're pulling the film across, the film cartridge doesn't pull out. That can be kind of annoying. On this side here you have to feed it into the take-up spool like so, and then wind and fire the shutter, which this one is not doing, until the full film is pulled all the way across and the holes on the top and bottom of the film are engaged in the teeth on this sprocket. Then close the film door and simply wind and fire the shutter until the number 1 lines up in the window. So overall this is a really cool and interesting camera, and if you're, I don't know, fashion conscious, or your friends are fashion conscious, a camera like this is likely to turn a few heads, because it's not something that you saw very often even back in the day when it was produced. It's kind of cool here with the black and silver. We have the silver top with kind of this black inlet here across the top, combination of black and silver on the lens assembly itself, and even with the leatherette and such around the camera, and the chrome elsewhere. So it's quite an attractive camera, and a design which you don't often see. And I look at these cameras like this, and I think of like the old Lost in Space series with Robbie the Robot and stuff like that, and the design of the things which they had in these shows, or the old Star Trek movies. And yeah, this kind of gives you a taste of the design which was quite popular in 1963. If you come across one of these cameras and it's in good condition, that is, the shutter fires accurately, the aperture works, and the lens is clean, by all means go out and shoot it. You'll be really happy with the results. If you have one like this one which needs a little work, I plan to take this one apart later on and see what I can do with it. Hopefully, if I can get it working and up and running properly, I'll go ahead and list it for sale in my online stores. I have a long line of cameras waiting on my waiting list to get done, so this one's not likely to be listed for another couple of weeks or so. So if you're interested, please check back. That is, if I can get it going. If not, and I suppose maybe I can use it for parts or something like that. That's why I have a closet full of old cameras, which my wife always complains about. So anyway. So anyway, that's it. As I said earlier, or at least in my previous videos, I received a lot of new and interesting cameras, this one being an example, and I plan to make videos about these cameras as I have time to do so. If you would like to see these videos, please subscribe. If you like this video, please like it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.